Hello YouTube, this is Christian coming to you with an update on my recent review of the Am8 Miguron Glear. So just in case you have watched that review and you're looking at the knife right now, you can see something obvious, or perhaps for some of you not as obvious, has happened. The knife has undergone a flipper delete, and I have to say, for me, on an aesthetical level and on a usage level, that is just a huge improvement. So much so that I have to say it's been my companion for a little bit over a week now, and I'm really growing to love this knife. And so there's a few plans here, things that I want to do with it. As you may have noticed in my last review, I found a couple of niggles with it, and I still have some issues with it. Some I could resolve, some are going to be resolved in a little while. But the biggest one for me has been the little flipper standing out on this side here previously. And yeah, that just had to go. It was just a pure eyesore. Also, you can see that after a week of use, there's been a fair bit of bright spots coming up on the anodizing, which I attribute to the relatively sharp edges. That is where anodizing doesn't produce a deep enough layer to affect a color change. And overall, anodized knives, titanium scales that are anodized, do better if they have a fully rounded contour. So a fillet works much better than a chamfer, and especially that diamond pattern that they are producing on the scale is susceptible to not getting enough depth in the anodizing layer to take the color. So that is why you get these little speckles. And as you keep using the knife, you can see it's just straight away subjected to signs of wear. So that is one thing that also is on the list of changes to come for this particular knife. But first of all, I got this knife just because I found the overall size of it at 3.75 inches. A little bit on the big side, but overall the aesthetics I found very pleasing. And initially when I reviewed it, one of the things that were perhaps the biggest negative was the shallow depths of the pocket clip. It's just not offering a lot of space in between scale and the inside of the pocket clip to slide into your trousers at all. And that, however, was remedied. So I had a look, I took the pocket clip apart, and it turns out the pocket that they milled out into the scales to hold that pocket clip straight is deep enough to bring it up a little bit. So in my particular case, I just shimmed it up by 0.8 millimeters, and it's still retained in that particular pocket. And that allows you to now quite easily slide in and out of the pocket, and it still sits on there quite nicely and tightly. So that was one fix. That was one of the big issues I had with this knife that got sorted out straight away. That was also kind of stopping me from taking it with me. And after that I took it with me, and my next doubt in the back of my mind, if you wanna say that, was perhaps the heat treatment of the S90V. It just seemed to be, from what I've been hearing on the forums, it was a little bit advertised as being on the lowish side for S90V, but after using it I've been really impressed with its performance. So I have to say, I did a fair bit of cutting with it, and no issues whatsoever. It actually performed really well. In actual fact, better than a lot of M390 and 20CV knives. So after a week at work, I usually have to at least strop my knives, and sometimes I have to resharpen lightly. But in this particular case, I gave it, it came from the factory with a not razor sharp edge. It was sharp, but it was not razor sharp. So I put it on the KME and put a 600 grit, which is on the rougher side for my taste, but just put a 600 grit edge on it, and a diamond edge 600, and it produced that kind of toothy edge that you really want in S90V. And man, it just didn't slow down, and taking it home after the week, I have no issues with it whatsoever. It's still slicing as if it was on day one, so that really is saying something, and that's really positive. I really like that. As far as the Flipper Tap is concerned, well, it always felt like, not so much when the knife is closed, I mean also when the knife is closed, but it's just such a clean thing. And then you have that pocket poker, and it just destroys the aesthetics of it. And if you flip it open, then also you had that thing poking out. Right now there's no issue whatsoever. Just you slide into position whatever you need in terms of whether you want to be choked up or whether you need a little bit more space. It's just perfect. And as far as aesthetics is concerned, I think it's no comparison whatsoever. I still have to take it apart again and have another go at that. That looks fairly alright, but I neglected to take it down perfectly on the edge there. So this has still to come. But for now, this will be my daily user for a little while, just because of its form factor. And there's a number of things that really stand out for me. Right now it's just worn in beautifully. Initially on the bearing races, and especially on that little track that your detent ball produces on the inside of the plate, initially with a bead plastered plate, it felt a little bit on the rougher side. But when I took it apart the first time to have a look at the internals, I lapped the surfaces and gave all the bearings and detent ball a good drop of oil. And after a week of usage, this knife has broken in to perfection. It is just phenomenal. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's on level of Riyadh, but it's not far off. It's been breaking in really nicely. Another thing that is going to change on this particular knife is, at the moment it's still the bead plastered finish on the blade, but I'm going to take that apart and I'll give you an update as I'm going to do it. That's going to end up in the tumbler, so that's going to get a stone washed finish. And also what I'm likely to do is I'm going to remove the anodizing of the scales, and I like the blue colorway, but what's going to happen is I'm going to heat anodize it instead, and that will get rid of all the silvery high spots in the scale and produce a little bit of a more durable finish in this particular case. And once I've completed all of that, I think this is going to be my go-to knife for a little while to come. It's that good. I mean, I have a selection of knives to go with, and often I find myself not being able to decide straight away which knife I want to use. But recently, this has been really great. And one of the reasons too is that it doesn't look and feel like a big knife. If I look at my 3.5 Chavez or the 3.5 ZT562, they're big knives. They feel like big knives. This is 0.25 inches longer, and it doesn't feel big. It just feels right. And I really like that about it a lot. It's just, I mean, in the knife world, little dimensional changes make a lot of perceived difference. And in this particular case, I really find, maybe it has to do with the fact that I find it aesthetically pleasing, but I feel the proportions of it are just about perfect. At least for me, they are. And so it's well worth looking at it and saying, well, this is easily modified. Taking a flipper tab away pretty much needs a Dremel tool and then a little bit of sanding and you're good. Removing anodizing in titanium isn't all that hard. There's certain rust removers that will get rid of it, and heating the scales up to the right temperature so that they give you the right color is not that hard either. If you have access to a tumbler, maybe you're reloading, maybe you're tumbling gun casings periodically, then you would have access to a tumbler, and so changing the finish on the blade is not a big thing either. And at this price point, I find this is actually a really good knife. I actually like it a lot now that some of the niggles have been sorted and they're easy modifications to make. And so that was a really big one for me, was really the pocket clip. That was easily remedied. Getting rid of the flipper was easily remedied, and changing the problem with the scale discoloration is going to be easy, and also changing the bead blasted finish on the blade is going to be real easy. And at the end of the day, I will end up with a knife that is actually pretty damn good for the money. So yeah, so this is at least from my perspective, a worthwhile upgrade. Some perhaps will see it as a downgrade because of the removal of the flipper tab, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't need that pocket poker. The knife works beautifully just with the thumb studs, so I can thoroughly recommend that. And yeah, so just an idea. Maybe you have been on the edge of purchasing this knife, maybe for the same reasons that I've been a little bit doubtful. One of them perhaps being the heat treatment of the S90V, which I can tell you is not going to be a problem at all. And the other thing is the flipper tab looks a little bit out of place, but it took me, I don't know, 12, 13 minutes, 14 minutes, make it 15 minutes to remove that and send it flat. And it's a new knife entirely from its handling and its haptics. So absolutely well worth it. And given the price point at $169, I can tell you, you can buy $300 knives out there that are not quite on that level, quite easily. So yeah, well worth update. I think this knife deserves a little bit better than my initial review, especially after some of the modifications. So if you're interested in that knife, don't reject it on hearsay. From my experience, it is an excellent blade in an excellent form factor with a very beautiful design. Alright, so I'll have another few videos coming up. I'm changing things around a little bit. I do have a number of leather videos coming up with EDC accessories and my EDC habits in terms of leather accessories. So if you're interested in that one, be sure to check out my other videos as you go along. Alright, all of you have a good weekend. See you next week. Bye.